Do you want to make a keypad combination in your Fortnite Creative map without using verse? Are you confused from previous tutorials from over 4 years ago that used the old channel system? Well, I got you covered, as I'm here to help show you the modern converted version using the event system. Shout out to the creator, JK Nay, who seems to have originally showcased this mechanic using channel system many years ago. Now let's get right into it. As you can see, I just made this little room here that's complete with a door and also a keypad that I made from the primitive shapes gallery. I also made billboards to put over each individual key so that you can distinguish which number that the player is actually going to push. First thing we're going to do is we're going to grab a lock device and we're going to place it on this door here. One thing I will recommend from the beginning here is to try and make sure to name all of your devices so that it gets less confusing for you in the long run. I didn't name mine in this tutorial as it was just a tutorial, but I will make sure to name mine better for future videos. You're going to want to edit the lock device so that it's not visible during the game, and we also want it to start as locked. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we need to place a button device down on each key on the keypad. You may want to resize the button just depending on how big your keypad is. For the button, you can do this in a few different ways. I'm going to put mine as a ½ second for the interact time. And I'm also going to make it so that it is not visible during the game. For the interaction radius, you want to make it as basically as small as possible when dealing with this, just depending on how big your keypad actually is. So we want to have the interaction text say what number that they are actually pressing. So let's just say for this one is press 1. Now you have to do this for every single key here, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that right now. Okay, so now that that's done, the next thing that we need to do is we need to place triggers down so that they coordinate with each button that is pressed. I'm just going to do this inside the building, but just for this video, but I recommend doing it outside the building. I'm also just going to make these triggers smaller just for this video. You don't have to make these triggers a different size. Okay, now once you've laid out your triggers, you're going to want to connect them to each button. So let's do that now. I laid my triggers out like this just so that it makes it easier to match up with the keypad, with the keys on the keypad. So this one obviously is going to be connected to number 1, which is button 11. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the trigger. We are going to trigger when we receive from button 11. Right? Button 12, button 13 are next. So let's hook those up. Okay, now we have all the buttons connected to a specific trigger. Now, these triggers are actually going to be for when the keypad doesn't work. So when you put in the incorrect passcode, right? It's going to make a lot more sense once we progress through the video, but this is how we have it set up for now. So before we go any further, we're going to determine what our combination actually is for this keypad to unlock the door. For this example, I'm going to use the code 729. Okay, so now we're gonna set up some triggers for these specific 3 combination numbers. Once you've placed these 3 triggers down for the correct passcode, we're gonna link them up to their specific buttons. So this first one, we want it to be 7. So number 7's button is button 17. So for the second one, it's number 2, which is button 12. And the last one is number 9, which is button 19. Now, in order to set it up so that it goes in a sequential order, so they have to put in 7 first, and then 2, and then 9, we're actually going to make these 2 triggers disabled. So we don't want them to be enabled on game start. So let's turn that off. And also this one here, we're going to turn off as well. We're going to set up a function here to enable this. And we want this trigger to be enabled once this trigger has been triggered. So trigger 26, let's go. We want to enable when trigger 26 is triggered. Oh, that says trigger 19. Trigger 26 is triggered. And now we want to do the same thing for this one whenever this one is triggered. Right? So now once they hit 7, it's going to enable 2, and then once they press 2, it's going to enable 9. Right? Now we need to make it so there's 2 more triggers to place down. One of them is going to be for the incorrect passwords, and the other is going to be for the correct passcodes. That one will be for the incorrect passcode, and then this one over here will be for the correct passcode. For this trigger, we want to set it at the very bottom. There is transmit every X triggers. We want to make this to transmit every 3 triggers. And then we're also going to change this to 3 as well. Now if we go over to our incorrect trigger, we're going to do the same thing. So change this to 3. Oops, change that to 3. So now for our incorrect triggers over here, we're going to link these all up to this trigger device. So every time that one of these is triggered, it's going to trigger this one. So let's do that now. Okay, so now we have it so that if any of these are triggered, they are going to trigger this trigger. Need to be saying trigger a lot. Now we want to do the same thing over here for our correct passcodes. Okay, one more thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna set up a let's do a HUD message device. So with the HUD message device, we want it to say we'll just say something simple like incorrect password, passcode, whatever. right? And basically, you don't really need to change too much. I mean, you can change where the placement is. So I'm going to put it top center. I'm also going to increase the size to something like 30, maybe 35. And also going to change this to red. Now we need to connect it also to this trigger. So trigger 29, we want it, once trigger 29 is set, we want it to show this HUD message device. Okay, so now when someone puts in an incorrect passcode of 3 random digits, it's going to activate this trigger, which will then show the message that the player has used the incorrect passcode. Now we're also going to do the same thing on the other side here, and we're going to place down another HUD message device. And we're going to do the same thing here, and this time we're going to make it say correct passcode. This one, I'm going to do the same thing, going to make it top center. And then we're also going to change this to green, and let's put the size up to 35. And now what we want to do is we want to make it so that the door actually unlocks. So we're going to do that with this trigger. And we're going to go over to on triggered, find the lock device. And we want it to unlock. You can also make it so that it opens the door as well. Okay, so now I think that should be everything. So let's go inside here. Oh wait, to explain this a little better here, if someone puts in 111, then it's going to trigger this device here and say that it was incorrect passcode. But because of how we have it laid out here, if someone puts in 729, they are still going to get a message that says incorrect passcode. So we need to fix that. And the only way that I figured out how to do that is when someone pushes this trigger, which is 2, we want to disable this trigger, which is 9. Right? That way, when they put in that combination of 7, 2, and 9, they won't be able to hit 9, which won't activate this trigger, but instead will activate these 3 triggers that activates this final one to have a correct passcode. One more thing that we need to do is that when someone puts in an incorrect passcode, we also want, just in case they use one of these numbers and it does activate or that does enable one of these, we want to go back and disable these once the incorrect password is put in. So that's going to be trigger 27 and trigger 28. And we're going to do that over here. That when it's triggered, for the HUD message device that we made over here, we want to make sure that it shows the message once this trigger has been triggered. So now we just have a few more touch-ups to do. I promise we're almost there. So we need to make sure that this trigger for number 9 has its function set to enable once trigger 29 is triggered. Now also on the opposite side, we need to make sure that this trigger will disable the trigger before it. That way a player can't press 7 3 times to unlock the door. Now back to the other side, we want to make sure that if they enter the incorrect password, that we re-enable the trigger back on the other side from what we just did. And And now the final step is we need to reset times triggered on our correct passcode trigger. We do this because if someone enters 745 and it shows incorrect, the correct trigger will still count as if it's already been triggered during the next passcode entry. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, let's check and see if everything works. Let's try 7 and then 2 and 1. All right, we got an incorrect passcode. That's what we wanted. Now let's try 7, 4, 5. Incorrect passcode. That's what we want. Now let's try 7, 2, 7. And yep, again, that's what we want. Incorrect passcode. Now let's try the real one. 7, 2, 9. And there you have it. We have now a working keypad. And that's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching, everybody. It really means a lot to me, especially for those watching here till the end. Please consider liking the video and subscribing, as it really helps boost my channel and boost my motivation in order to keep making these for you guys. All right, that's it for now. Stay spicy. I'm out. Peace.